I'm Rachel Horgan. Join me each episode as I sit down with a guest co-host covering the latest business stories in the Seattle area. We'll read the news so you don't have to. This is The Weekly. What is up, everybody? So for those that listen to the show a lot know that I typically do like kind of a personal life update or a behind-the-scenes update of an event that I worked. And this week, I don't have either of those things. The only thing that's happened is I bought a toothbrush, and I really didn't feel like it needed its own segment on the podcast. So we're going to skip right to introducing my guest. I'm sitting here with Pete Nordstrom, the co-CEO of Nordstrom and the host of the Nordy Pod. Hi, Pete.
Hi. Thanks for having me. I'm kind of bummed out. I thought, well, it's going to get the toothbrush story. But maybe that's for another time.
Well, I can tell you that there was a screen on it, and I was like, why does my toothbrush have a computer on it? I don't need that. Okay. I'm going... Every episode, I feel like I get more Amish. But anyway, we're recording here at the studio at STG at Cary Hall. I've recorded here a few times. I just super appreciate it. The team here is great. We've got Josh behind the camera, making sure things go well. So thank you to STG. And yeah, thank you for taking the time. I know Nordstrom obviously is this huge, huge company, but at its core, it is a Seattle local business. So, and that's all that this podcast is about. So it's nice that you're still talking to local media like us.
Well, we're Seattle-based. I mean, I can't remove myself from that, and I'm happy to be from Seattle. And I think our company's proud to be associated with Seattle.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, today we're going to do kind of a special episode. I'm sorry, Pete, if you were looking forward to like speed reading 5 articles, which is what I usually give my guests. But there's just so much to talk about with Nordstrom. So we're going to kind of dive deep in the behind the scenes of the business of Nordstrom. So we'll talk first a little bit about family business and the dynamics of running a family business, what that looks like. We'll definitely take time to talk about your deal going private last year and some behind the scenes there. And then we'll talk about the state of retail as a whole, where we're seeing that going in the future. And we're going to close out with specifically the business community here in Seattle, like you mentioned. So, but Pete, before we get into it, I want to talk about your podcast. I listened to to the Mattel CEO episode. I thought it was fascinating. But how did this get started? Why did you start it?
The idea was on our mind for several years, and largely just because there's not a huge barrier of entry from having a podcast. It doesn't require a whole bunch of money to be able to do it. And, we're always looking for ways that we could have a connection with our customer in any way that they're interested in it. And, there are a fair amount of people that are interested in the business of what we do. And there's a lot of people that Nordstrom goes beyond a transactional relationship. They like it personally. They're emotionally attached to it in some ways. So we thought it might be good if there's a way that I could host authentic conversations that felt like it was a transparent view of how we think about things, why we do what we do. As you might imagine, the PR marketing people got a little bit nervous, like, okay, what's Pete going to say and how's this all going to work? But
right, legal was probably
there's all that. I've had legal listen to episodes like, oh my God, why did you say that and how did that happen? But ultimately, what strikes me, and I'm sure you know this from doing this, the ones that go best are the ones that feel like it's just an authentic conversation. Mm-hmm. It's not a scripted thing. So I typically don't write questions out or anything. I try to talk to people that have a reason to be talking to them. There's some affiliation with our business or interest that I have or a relationship of knowledge of each other. And so, it forces me to really be in the moment and listen and just respond that way and, kind of listen more and talk less. So this is interesting being on this side.
Do you have a preference of being host or guest?
Oh, yeah. I got to say that I think to be a good guest a good host, you have to be a pretty curious person. And I don't really think I am that way naturally.
Really?
But I've learned how to be a better listener and I think to be more curious. And when you open yourself up to being more curious, there's a lot of things you learn. So selfishly for me, I feel like I've learned so much about our place in the world while people think about what we do and how it could be better, learn from other companies, other people. Like, that Mattel episode you talked about, I'd met him in New York. I was doing the Deal Book Summit where I was being interviewed and he was one of the people being interviewed, that a panel of CEOs. And first of all, it's kind of interesting, the Mattel business, particularly like with the Barbie movie and all that stuff that's happened. But we carry toys and we do business with Mattel. And so I was kind of interested, like, well, maybe there's something I can learn here, or we could do more business together. And it's true. And from listening to that, I'm sure you heard about just the business of toys and how viable that is and how relevant to what we're trying to do. Stuff like that's really interesting.
You were talking about getting people in the door with Christmas shopping because most people are buying for kids, and how can you add more to Nordstrom?
Well, I mean, a big part of the types of things we sell has to do with occasions and reasons to buy something, and gifting's a really obvious one in the holiday time. And we probably haven't been as literal or intentional about how to be important to people in those times. And, they talk about kids and whatever's going on in the economy or stuff, people never scrimp on their kids. They're going to buy them a present.
Yeah, they're hard to say no to.
We serve families and all that. So we don't necessarily have to be the number one choice, but we want to be in the consideration set of if I'm looking for a present for anyone in my family, I can go to Nordstrom.
Yeah, absolutely. And how long have you been doing the pod?
It's been 3 years probably now. I've done 110 episodes, something like that.
Okay. Yeah, I'm around the same. So congrats.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, so let's talk about the family business side of things. It is, in my research, it's uncommon for family businesses to make it to the fourth generation, which you are. Typically, they kind of peter out after the third generation. Why do you think you were able to make it this far? What strategies were put in place to get there?
Well, I think, as you might know, we're celebrating our 125th anniversary this year, which, there's obviously that generational thing. And I'm fourth generation member of the Nordstrom family. My great-grandfather started this business in 1901 as a shoe business. But I'd be misleading you or anyone else to say it was all part of some big grand plan that's been well orchestrated and thought through. If you kind of go back to the first couple of generations, I think it was just a natural and logical extension of an opportunity that was there. Once my great-grandfather had started this business and he had 3 sons, and, then they took it to something else. Yeah. And then my dad's generation came in and then they took it to something else. But people might not believe this, but there was never any sense of obligation or expectation for me or my brothers that we were going to work here. No.
Oh.
I worked at Nordstrom from a very young age, but that's because where I could get a job. I mean, when you're 12 and your dad says you got to do something, I mean,
12,
first of all, no one's going to hire you.
Yeah, yeah.
And there's nothing much I'm capable of doing, but he would bring me down. This is during the summers, bring me down to work and drop me off at the shoe stock room and say, put my kid to work. I'll be back at 6 o'clock and pick him up.
Yeah.
So I swept floors and did things that a 12-year-old could do. And I did that stuff during the summers. And not because, again, this is going to be a foundational development program for our son to be CEO of Nordstrom. It's like,
you're 12. You're like, I want to go to the movies.
Well, yeah. My parents are just like, we're not going to just give you money.
Yeah.
And you can't just hang out all summer and do nothing and bug your mother. You're going to have to do something. And it was also clear that, and as a means to an end, as I got older, it's like my parents were going to buy me a car and I wanted to get a car when I turned 16. Mm-hmm. And so, it was a good summer job. And when I was 16, I actually started selling shoes. And that's when I started getting paid by the company and not out of my dad's pocket.
Yeah.
So that's really when it all started. But even then, I liked it. It was a good summer job. I felt good about it. I made enough money where I could buy a car.
But it wasn't like your goal,
not a big fancy
CEO.
Car.
Yeah.
No, and then even as I went from if you'd asked the teenage Pete Nordstrom what he wanted to do or aspired to do, I would have told you I wanted to be a professional basketball player or something. Those are the kinds of dreams that most people have. But as reality starts coming in, as I got older and I kind of figured out people probably weren't going to pay me money to play basketball, I had to think about jobs that I could do. Even though I played and I really like sports, I kind of intuitively understood there might be a difference between the things that you enjoy and are a hobby or and a career. They may not be the exact same thing.
Yeah.
And I had liked my experience at Nordstrom. I wasn't trying to get away from my family. I like my brothers. Mm-hmm. I like my dad. I've always felt like my dad enjoyed his work and enjoyed his job, and that rubbed off on me. And so I went to the University of Washington. I was an English major, which, again, I think would tell you I wasn't really planning for some career in business. Yeah. And then probably when I was, around 21 years old, I thought, I've liked working at Nordstrom. I understand the opportunity here. I think if I work hard and do the work, I can have a big job here that I'd like. It was no more complicated than that. And so I started right away when I graduated. I didn't take a gap year. I started. Mm-hmm. And I was an assistant manager the second assistant manager of women's shoes at South Center. That was not a glamorous title.
Okay. Yeah.
But that's how it started. And there was never, again, any conversation about either my obligation or some sense of entitlement that because my name, I was going to get these jobs. It was natural. I mean, other people my age, my experience had that job. And then I just decided once I got going on and I liked it. And I just said, well, I'm just going to go wherever the opportunity is. And in those days, we were building a lot of stores across the country, and we largely promoted from within. So that created natural opportunity. So I said, I'll go anywhere, do anything that's a promotion.
Yeah.
And so I went to California a couple of different times. I was a buyer. I was a regional manager in Southern California. After a while, I'd had a lot of experience. I was an assistant manager. I was a manager. I was a buyer. I was a buyer in a couple of different places. I was a merchandise manager for a category for shoes. I was a store manager in Tacoma. I was a regional manager in Southern California. And so by the time I'm, in my early 30s, I'd done a lot of things and had practical experiences that, again, and I didn't really stand out as being overly young compared to other people who had these jobs. I was in there felt like a peer group. And my brothers were two of those people, other people, because my older brother is only 18 months older than me. My younger brother is 18 months younger. So we had a very similar set of experiences and trajectory. And then at that time, my dad and his cousins decided that they wanted to retire and move along, but we were pretty young. When I say we, it was me and my two brothers. I also had three cousins that were about the same age that had a very similar story to tell about their experience. And they figured we were too young to run the place, so they hired someone to be a CEO, and then we were like co-presidents of the company, and they divided up a bunch of responsibilities. Now, it was a bit of a hairball, I'm sure. I mean, at the moment, it seemed like a natural thing to do, but looking back on it, that doesn't follow the best practices of corporate structures.
Yeah,
six co-presidents
right.
with the founder's name and somebody not named Nordstrom managing them,
charge.
and then people named Nordstrom on the board managing that person.
Yeah.
So this poor guy was
messy.
kind of caught a Nordstrom sandwich.
And I think it's so important for people to see that you have worked from the ground up, and that's part of why I think this makes you so successful. And it's interesting. I always am curious how people become CEOs and if it's something that's always been on their mind or not. So,
that's kind of how our thing worked. I mean, the people that have always been in charge at Nordstrom, the people that come at it from a practical experience as a commercial selling stuff to customers experience. Managing stores, managing people, interacting with customers, being a buyer, all the commercial engine of what we do, not necessarily from finance or from legal or from strategy or tech. I mean, those are all parts of what we do, but they're really more an enabler and a support of the commercial part of the business. So we are, maybe because it's a family thing, we're more of a merchant-led organization rather than let's put the guy that went to Harvard there as
and you
as
see
the
that
leader.
a lot. You see that a lot. We've done some episodes on the path for CFO to CEO is the most common path.
Yeah.
And there's been
not at our company. But.
Right. And there's been some studies where CMO or somebody in marketing might make typically a better CEO because they're more able to take risk and different reasons like that. But to your point, not just hiring somebody that knows business, but somebody that knows the company really well.
And so, you talked about how it happened, and I've touched a lot of bases. And, we have a meritocracy really culture of how things work. People earn the right to have better jobs because they accomplish things. I did have, and this was actually on a recent podcast, I had my old boss, the guy who hired me to be a store manager, said, no one ever told me to hire you, but I figured, it's a meritocracy around here, and I thought the most meritorious thing about you was your last name,
Thank you.
And he may have been right at that point. I wasn't offended. I was just happy to have opportunities because I knew at a certain point I was not going to have jobs just because of what my name was. I don't doubt people knew who I was, and I'm sure it didn't hurt. But then we got to the point, so when I'm co-president, so what happened was the business started to really struggle. And largely because we were a company that had grown organically out of Seattle across the country, and the processes and practices of how we did that, we kind of always kept them the same, yet we had so much more scale. And it wasn't really practical to run the business in the way we'd run it when we only had a small handful of stores here.
Yeah, I can't
We had
do
an
the same.
extremely decentralized way of running it, and not so much because that was a value of the company, but it was a practical thing. There weren't systems and technology and processes that could allow you to do a high-touch business like ours remotely
scale,
and
yeah.
not be kind of in it at every different market we're in. But so we were at the cross section of when we had to try to start figuring that stuff out, and then the legacy practices of yesterday, and we struggled.
Well, I want to touch on that because you said you've been around 125 years,
Yeah.
and family business legacy is a huge thing that comes into play. And there's this is how we've always done it. We want to pay tribute to our grandfathers, but then we also want to modernize it and come in today's world. I think about with Dick's Drive-In, one example of how I think it was the grandfather that didn't want to take credit cards. It was cash only, and Jasmine eventually convinced him to go that way.
And that's a good example because there's a difference between values and practices, right? I mean, the way you receive transactions money is a practice. So what are the values of your company? Are there values about cash, not charge? I'm probably not.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know what the
I don't
reason
know,
was.
yeah.
Maybe you save a few bucks when it's that way. It's easier, but...
Yeah. Well, and I guess I just want to, how do you balance that pressure to stay true to that side, but also come into today's world? And do you have an example of some changes that you've made that was maybe...
Yeah, so I mean, so if I continue to kind of tell the history of this, I think that all kind of comes out.
please.
So again, the business wasn't going well. Things were happening. There were challenges. I think there was a lot of pressure on the CEO. My dad and his generation had a lot of success. And it's a lot of things were being tried and they weren't working. I had cousins that were, the six of us that started feeling disenfranchised from it and didn't like what was going on. So it all culminated in the CEO got fired. A couple of my cousins quit. The company had to figure out, it's a public company at this point. We
Right,
went
that's
public
right.
in 1971.
71,
So
okay.
it wasn't just like my dad decided what was going to happen. I mean, the Nordstrom people were four of, I think 11 people on the board. So while they had a lot of influence, and we didn't own a majority of the business, they didn't have a majority of the voting rights, however
Sure.
set up on
Yeah.
the board, but they had a lot of influence. So, the company interviewed different leaders of different retail companies. Like they interviewed the CEO from Neiman Marcus and the guy from Macy's and all the kind of usual suspects. And this time, then it was just my older brother Blake and myself and Eric, and we're in our, God, how old were we then? I don't know. We were like in our late 30s maybe.
Okay.
And we said, we'd like the opportunity to do this.
Wow.
And, my dad and his cousins were like, yeah, you guys are great. But, he's my dad. I mean, so
Yeah.
the rest of the board was a little skeptical. And they should have been.
Yeah.
They didn't want to just have a nepotism plan. They wanted to have a good business plan. And so we kind of essentially interviewed for it in one way. And then finally the board decided, okay, you guys are going to do it. But we got pulled aside. I'll never forget this. Before it officially came out, it says, okay, you guys are going to get the opportunity to do this. A couple things. We're not going to go for this co-thing. You can't be three of you that are equal. One's got to be in charge, and then there's got to be more of a traditional structure.
Sure.
So Blake and Eric and I went in a room. Okay, Blake, you're the oldest. You're the one. Pete, you got all merchandising. Eric, you got all stores. And that's how we set it up.
That
And then we
easy.
had,
Okay.
we had HR, we had tech, we had finance,
course.
but the commercial part of the business, we ran it. But we also kind of decided amongst ourselves, we're going to operate as a group. I mean, regardless what our title is, right? We're going to be better because there's three of us that trust each other and have a like-minded view of the business, and we can leverage that, across. So that happened. But we were told, like, look, you guys aren't entitled to be here. We're going to give you the shot to do this, but you got to be clear about it. If it does not go well, you will be taken out of your job. And you might feel that would be deflating, but it wasn't. I found it
Kind of
really
encouraging.
motivating.
Yeah, motivating, yeah.
And we were happy, we were like happy to have the experience, and we had confidence, maybe naively.
I would say at that point, sometimes it's good to not know
That's right.
a few things. and to
But,
think you can do
when
it. Yeah.
things aren't going well, it kind of gives you a chance to recalibrate. And so we really locked in on, we focused it way down. There was a lot of agendas going on, and we just said, look, the biggest differentiator we have is how we treat customers.
Yep.
So everything's got to go through that filter, and let's make that our dominant strategy. And everyone knew that was part of the culture, but along the way we maybe lost the thread a little bit. And just doing that and stripping it down and simplifying it, and kind of, maybe we'd hit rock bottom, and then the business was good. And so over time we went from being, the three guys that the board felt like they had a mentor because we're young and didn't know what we were doing. To like, wow, this is going pretty well. And then I guess I would say in terms of the evolution of things change and not just being a heritage brand with legacy practices, but trying to be a modern and relevant thing. If you think what happened in our generation, we had no choice but to evolve. In my dad's generation, there was only one way business was done. You had wholesalers that were brands. They didn't sell direct to customer, none of them.
Okay.
And they relied on a multi-brand store like us to be the retailer. So they sold stuff to the retailer. The retailer had stores. There wasn't online. And we put stores where we thought people wanted us, and there was enough people. And so their dad in their generation made it from a Northwest company to a national company. So they had, let's put a store in Dallas, put a store in Chicago, let's put a store in Minneapolis, let's put another store in San Diego. And so and then it was also the same time there was that mall kind of culture thing that was really happening. There was a lot of development around malls. So it created a lot of opportunity for Nordstrom to go in these markets. But by the time we got there, we were pretty much everywhere. So and then there's all of a sudden there's the internet's coming on. Like, what's that going to do? And we had to figure out with no crystal ball about our place in that world and how we could evolve from not, again, just being a dinosaur, like a department store, but something that feels relevant. And so, we figured out how to get in the online business. We figured out how the online business needed to be completely synergistic and seamless with the physical part of it too, so customers can easily access this any way they want. We learned those things, and really because we were in it, and we kind of intuitively probably had a good feeling about how that was going to work. And then, we had to figure out then, okay, we got this rack banner, and maybe that's something we can grow, and how would that work? So all that stuff has happened, and it's still going on. Just if you think about things like AI or the things that keep coming up that really transform what businesses. So it's a very long way of me saying that it's been great in terms of being challenged and trying to figure out how to stay relevant and keep it new. I think that's kept us motivated and engaged, but it's not been easy. I mean, because, we're not in an easy business. Being in a department store in today's world is not
as we'll
easy.
talk about. Yeah, I think what I'm hearing is not being afraid to make changes, but at the core, you still remember your values. So whether you're changing to online or not, you're still thinking about that when making decisions and not thinking about like how to make the most money possible. I want to ask one more question on this family business, and we'll move to your deal. But how do you think about succession planning in the future? I think I read where I think Blake has a daughter that's working in the business, but are you open to somebody outside?
Blake's daughter, Alex, she works in our Nordstrom product division, which is the stuff we design and make ourselves, which is a little less than 10% of everything we do. But she's involved in doing that. She does a great job. In my generation, my brother Blake passed away a few years ago, so it's me and Eric, my younger brother, and our cousin Jamie. And the three of us are on the executive team. It's a pretty finite number of people. Since my brother died, Eric and I ran the company, and we were, over time, we became co-presidents anyway, the three of us. But then my brother died, and then, the public company, that was an existential crisis for them. Like, okay, well, maybe Blake was the guy, and those other two guys aren't the guy, and like, how are we going to do this? How are we going to set it up? And we worked through all that, but then, we had the opportunity to take the company private, which is another whole long story. But what emerged from there after that's happened is like, Eric and I run it as co-CEOs, but Jamie's part of this family that's an owner of it too. So really, it's the three of us acting as owners and also executives in the business. That's created some differences, but almost all good as far as I'm concerned.
I was going to say, some disagreement can be good, different perspectives. So you're open to maybe not necessarily a child, but maybe somebody that's in the family in some way, or maybe not.
In terms of a succession plan for us, I mean, we've been so involved in the transition from being public to private company that we haven't spent a ton of time on that. But it's, my age and Eric's age. I mean, Jamie's younger than we are, but I mean, we're not in the...
You still have time.
Well, we're not in the fourth inning of our career. I mean, we've been doing this a long time. And I think, we want to be really thoughtful about that. But what I could tell you is that it's never been part of our plan that we have to preserve a family leadership thing at all costs. That is not true at all. I mean, the difference is before, Eric and I were 2 of 10 people on a board. And when it was time for us to move on and work on succession, the fact is we did not have control over what that was going to be. And considering everything our family has in this world is invested in this business, you want to have some control over it. So I think it's quite likely, in the foreseeable future, there won't be a Nordstrom as CEO. And I think that's totally fine as long as we get to decide who that is.
Who it is and who somebody you trust. I think that's where some family businesses get into trouble is they force some people into positions and they may not be the best fit. And is that overall the best for the business? So, yeah.
Well, and even like when I talked about the cousins that used to be here, I have far more relatives that don't work here than do. But what's all made that work over time was they naturally self-selected out. There was never a power struggle. There was never any of that. I'm voting my shares versus your shares. Who owns them more? It was just people feel like I got choices in the world. I think I want to do something else. And so the last people standing really like Eric Blake and myself and my cousin Jamie again, who's younger.
Yeah.
Out of all these other relatives we have in our generation, and it's all worked out.
I think that's smart.
Fine. And so, I mean, part of it is serendipitous, and I think it's happened by, with some good fortune, not with perfect calculation and execution of that. But I'm grateful for how it's all worked out. And, whatever the future holds, I feel, again, super grateful that I'm in a position to help make a decision on behalf of our family.
Yeah.
It's going to be in the best interest of the business over time.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about this deal. So before this deal happened last year, you actually tried to go private in, I think it was 2017.
That's right.
Why didn't that work out? What happened back then?
Well, I mean, this process is, first of all, our family owned like 30% of it. So we needed partners to be able to take it private. We couldn't.
Yeah, like
we don't have all this money. We just go buy it.
Right.
It didn't. So in that case, there was a private equity partner, and that's, how these things go.
Yeah, typically, yeah.
But they have an end game. They just want to make money. They say they care about the business, but they really
don't, Pete.
Don't. And we learned those lessons in that process. But anyway, there was a plan, and we offered a big premium. We went through the whole process, and at the end of it, the board turned down an offer for $52 a share.
Okay.
And that was it. It was over. It's like, we're not accepting that offer. You guys get back to work. This distraction's gone too far.
Defeating at the time, but probably looking back, maybe glad that one didn't go through. So
I think it would have ended up working out, but all the things that happened, you think about COVID and stuff, the complications and burdens on all kinds of business, if you are highly leveraged or have any of those pressures, that you would get from private equity money, that wouldn't have been great. And particularly in an industry that just didn't have all this natural growth arc to it. It was, the existential threat for us was how, first of all, brands all sell directly to customers now.
Right.
You think about that.
Yeah, more
competition. And they're in our store too. Pretty much everything we carry, they can buy. A customer can buy directly from them or somewhere else. Mm-hmm. The other part is, private equity companies, they want an end game. Like, are you going to take it private and then IPO and go public again? Because there's a big money event.
How do I get my money?
How do I get my money? Yeah. How do we get a money event out of this? And so, all those pressures would have made it maybe difficult for us, but I'm sure it would have worked out. But anyway, so that went away. But we always knew in the back of our mind it was possible. And the thing that has to happen is, first of all, you have to be in an industry where the public markets don't value it as much as we do, or as much. So
what do you mean?
Well, stock. If you're a public company, your scoreboard is your stock price. And stock price is driven by a multiple. So it's a multiple of either your sales or your earnings. And that multiple is impacted by the growth prospects. So a company that maybe doesn't do a ton of business but has a huge growth opportunity in some people's minds, they have a very high value, which means their stock price is very high. We were in an industry where people didn't have a lot of confidence in it. Our multiple was low. So our stock price was low.
Yeah.
Even though we had good business and particularly relatively to our peers, we had pretty good business, and we were described by a lot of people as the best house in a bad neighborhood. Okay, you guys are good, but it's not a good business that you're in. Yeah. So our stock price is low, and when you're running a company that your scoreboard is your stock price, it's a bummer. We could have a good quarter, and our stock went down $2 or something. So that wasn't great. But it made, this thing might be more affordable now. So that happened. And then it was like, but we also still need some kind of equity investor partner in this thing because we can't do it ourselves.
Yeah.
And we met these guys from Mexico who we had met before, but it's a family-run public company similar to ours, department store. It's called Liverpool.
Yeah.
They're the biggest department store group in Mexico, very successful. And they had approached us and said, we know you guys have tried to take this private before, and we have money here, capital, and if you make money in Mexico, you kind of need to get it out of Mexico. You want to diversify, and we want to invest in something we know something about. We think you guys are great. Would you mind if we bought?
So they approached you?
They approached us like, would you mind if we bought, I can't remember what it was, 5% of the company or something like that. And we're like.
5? You're like, what about 50?
well, no, we didn't. It was like, well, that's interesting. But immediately there's a cynical like, well, what is their end game? Why are they doing this?
Yeah,
are they,
right.
Are they trying to do a hostile takeover? Like, what's happening?
Yeah.
But we talked to them and they said, no, we have some money. We'd like to move out of our business. But it's actually, it goes through the company still. It's like an investment for that company and that family. So we said, okay. We vetted that a little bit. We said, okay. And then they came back a little bit later and said, if you guys ever wanted to go private again, we'd be interested in being your partner of that.
Wow.
And we said, are you interested in owning it? Are you interested in running it? Like,
what's your motive here?
And they said, no. Matter of fact, we wouldn't be interested in being an investor if you guys were just looking to get some money and get out.
Wow.
So if you're not planning on doing this and running it, it's not me and my brother, essentially, we're not particularly interested in investing in it. And I said, no, we want to be around. We plan on it. We're like, okay. Well, they came as a common equity investor. They're not, there's no preferred shares. It's not private equity money. They didn't come in with an express exit or goal around how much money they were going to make. They just thought, as a long-term investment, this would be a good thing to be an owner of. And they said, and on day one, let's have it where you guys are 51%, we're 49%. We don't want to run it.
Yeah.
We don't want to own it. We want you to run it. I mean, it was almost like it was too good to be true.
Yeah,
which was part of the process. We had to vet.
Right.
Is this
what
too
are we
good
missing?
To be true?
Yeah.
And they're really honorable, nice people. I mean, we know of them by reputation just because the business we're in. A lot of the brand partners you do business with those guys too. And said, oh no, we know those guys. Those are really honorable, nice people. And we decided to take on the process. But part of that was, we'd done this before, and public boards, they don't necessarily want to go private. It's a big onerous thing to take on. There's lawsuits. I mean, there's potential of all kinds of messiness with this. But we just said, hey, look, we're in a business that we don't think the company's recognized properly for the value it really has in the public markets. What would be alternatives we could pursue that would create more value for this company? Should we sell it? What if we took it private? What if we did a merger with someone? What if we started another business? What if we did an acquisition? What if we, we kind of put it in that framework, but we have to be able to kind of go there. We're not interested in so that's not what our desire is. But we might as well kind of look at what our choices
are. Thought exercise,
because for the shareholder, that's the appropriate thing to do because they just want to maximize their investment. And that was the board's responsibility, and we totally got it. So we went through that. We had a lot of advisors and third parties come in and talk about where they thought we could add value. And one of them was the company was relatively more affordable at that time to be able to take it private. And when you take a company private, you have to pay a premium on the stock price. To entice people to want to sell it.
Okay.
And our stock price had been down around $11, and then it was kind of in the mid-teens. And with the time we decided to go private, I think the stock price was $17.50 maybe when it got announced. And immediately the first thing that happens when you announce that your stock goes up because there's an anticipation this will be successful and there'll be some kind of premium attached to it. So people want in. But, it took, a year or so, at least, to do this. The process is really onerous.
Yeah.
Even though our deal was pretty clean and what we were trying to do, it wasn't hostile takeover. It wasn't it was. But then you start talking about price, and we have to arrive at a price, and their job is to get the best darn price they can for the shareholders, and we got that. But there's only so much we could afford, and so there was a lot of back and forth and earnestness and good intentions, doing the right thing. And so we made an offer, and finally that was accepted, and that was $24.50. So it was a premium from $17. Okay. I mean, if you own the stock and it was $17 and it had been as low as $11 within the last year in a volatile place where, I mean,
yeah, I mean,
that seemed pretty good.
Yeah.
But compare back to 2017, we offered $52 a share.
Yeah.
And some people said, well, it should be $52 a share. I go, but it hasn't been. That stock price hasn't been anywhere close to that. Mm-hmm. It's aspirationally a great goal, but it's just the company's worth what it's worth at a certain point.
Yeah.
When everyone had an opportunity, because it becomes a public process, they can see it. People could kind of swoop in and say, well, we'll offer X amount of dollars a share. And you do run that risk of other people coming in, but it didn't happen.
Yeah.
This was deemed by objective people as advisors on both sides as a good offer. I mean, they pushed as far as we could go. And anyway, it ended up getting done.
Well, and that was about a year ago. And I just read an article that you've reached revenue that's equal to about your 2019 numbers.
It's a little bit more than that.
A little bit more.
Yeah.
So clearly something's going well. Do you have an example, like a specific example of something that you're able to do now that you're private, or changes that you're able to make now that you're private that you couldn't do when you're public? Or I guess some sort of explanation as to why you're above your 2019 levels?
Well, first of all, I don't think customers care if we're public or private. They don't care about stuff like that. They just want what they want when they want, and they want to be served well. So, and I think employees care at some level, but things haven't changed. The strategy of the business hasn't changed. How we operate hasn't changed. The thing that's changed has really been more noticeable by three people named Nordstrom, and that's just the governance of how to run a private company versus a public company is a lot different. The things you have to do as a public company that take a lot of time and energy just to do, the governance parts of this that are compulsory that you just have to do. It takes a lot of time.
Yeah.
It costs a lot of money, and it distracts you sometimes, I think, from are customers happy with what we do? Do we carry products they want to buy? Is it good
and you're
service?
like all tied up on process and steps and
audits
approvals.
And Sarbanes-Oxley. And I mean, they're all fine things. And we operated a successful company for a long time. And that's all we ever knew. I mean, Eric and Jamie and I never ran a private company. So it wasn't that we were pining for something that we used to do. We just thought it'd be different and better for where we are and where our company is. In what we do. And it has been. So as a year down the road, what I can tell you, at least, speaking for myself here, is the jobs become more enjoyable for me. I spend more time on things that are germane to what's important in the business, things where I feel like I can add value. I think not having the complications of a public board and how that complicates decision-making strategically.
Yeah.
I mean, literally, I walk into Eric's office, he comes in mine, we talk about stuff, and if we feel like it's important, we do it.
How nice.
And not in a way that we're shoving it down people's throat.
No.
I mean, we have a process of how we operate here that's very inclusive. But it's simpler, it's more focused, it allows us to focus the energies and the resources of the business and the stuff where we think we can create most value.
Yeah.
And it's worked out that way. So, the business has been pretty good.
Well, Pete, I want to shift over kind of in big picture state of retail. We are seeing a lot of department stores close, and I want you to take out your crystal ball. What does the next 5 to 10 years look like for retail, and kind of specifically in terms of brick and mortar and online, or I guess however you really want to take that. But what does it look like? Well, I mean, it's part of what I talked about. The evolution of how this business has gone is really what's determined all these competitive forces and the existential threats and stuff. And again, it was a much different business in the 80s and 90s than it is now. Online came in and disrupted all of that. Like I said, the brands being able to sell direct to customers disrupted all of that. How do we view it now? I think we think that there's always room to be the best of whatever it is. Okay. And I don't know exactly what's happened to all those other department stores out there. I know it's a tough business and they've got whatever challenges they have. But if we're the best of what we do, then there's a place for us. And not just for customers, but you think of like our brand partners. We're largely a house of brands. And particularly in America, there's still a huge wave business is done, and that's through a multi-brand store like us. In other places, it may be a little bit more direct to customer. I think Asia's a little bit more like that, and certainly parts of Europe. But in the U.S., even the biggest brands in the world, like LVMH or Nike or people like that, they do need, as part of their recipe in North America, they need multi-brand store like us. Because what we can do is we introduce
new customers
to their brand,
more customers to their brand. Just think about LVMH. I mean, that whole business is built on scarcity.
Louis Vuitton?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And, and they own Celine and Christian Dior and a lot of these designer brands people would recognize. Really expensive.
Yeah.
Scarce. I mean, expensive. It's just...
Yeah, that's their play.
But they also want to introduce their stuff to new customers. So, it's really intimidating to go walking into a Christian Dior store. I mean, there's velvet ropes and there's guards and there's it's not super inviting. It's not super inclusive.
Yeah.
Our thing, we got all kinds of people walking in and out of there. And we have a large percentage of our customers that aspire to or want to buy the best things the world has to offer. And that makes for an exciting shopping experience for them. If not, just to look at it. I mean, and it creates context and a bit of a halo around what we do because we have that type of thing. But we bring, we have 32 million customers. Our customers tend to be younger than the customers they get. Our customers tend to be younger than Neiman Marcus or Saks. They're pure play around luxury and designer. It's a pipeline. We get young people like, I can't afford to buy a Chanel jacket, but one day I'm buying that Chanel sunglasses. Yeah. Or I might get the lipstick. And we sell all that. And we become an entry point. And maybe I'll buy a pair of shoes someday. And then, maybe they get older and they have more money. They can make different choices and they might want to buy other things. But those brands all recognize that we add value to their ecosystem and not in a way that is competitive to them, if that makes sense. So those are a lot of the conversations we have with brands. And it's not just LVMH. I mean, it's the Nikes of the world that aren't as exclusive, but they can sell direct to customer. And then you have the existential things like Amazon. And we could have convinced ourselves for a long time, but they're different. That's Amazon and they don't have good service and blah, blah, blah. But increasingly customers, well, first of all, customers define what good service is, not us. But customers increasingly define it as speed and convenience.
Okay.
And there's no denying that Amazon is really good at speed and convenience.
This is true.
They're darn good at it. Good prices, all of that. There's no moat for us that protects the brands that sell Nordstrom from being in there. I mean, and Amazon's got a lot of the brands we carry. Most of the brands we carry are there. So that's a thing. And if you think about, I'll just use an example, the beauty business, the cosmetics business, a big part of what that is replenishment. And so they may come to Nordstrom to see what's new and they may try things there. But once they like that lipstick or that eyeliner or whatever, and they, every 6 weeks they're buying another one. The easiest thing in a lot of ways is
go direct.
Go to Amazon.
Oh, Amazon. I see. Yeah.
I can get it in a day. I mean, the price is good.
Yeah.
I know exactly what I'm buying. I don't need to try it on. I know what it is. And so them and also even Walmart.com, you might be surprised to know that their marketplace online, they have an enormous amount of brands that overlap with us. You wouldn't find it in their stores, but they have it online.
Interesting.
And so again, some of these things that people buy, if you wear Nike shoes and you know what size you are, you don't have to necessarily go try it on. You could buy that stuff from people like that. So where's our place in this world? Well, we do about 40% of business we do online.
40%, okay.
Yeah, and we have the ability to seamlessly go from store. You can buy online and return in store. You can pick up in store. You can return it online. There's all these ways you can access your brand. You can't really do that with Walmart.com or Amazon.com. We offer customers more choices based on their occasions and need states. We have the rack banner, which is different. And so we feel like we've got a pretty competitive thing there. But I mean, every day things like that are real competition. Or you look like the pure play people like a Sephora or Ulta in the beauty business. They've completely turned the beauty business on its head, how it's done. And we can either decide to go down with a ship with a legacy practice or evolve how we do it too.
Yeah.
That's the kind of stuff that's going on. Those are the things we talk about every day.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. You mentioned Nordstrom Rack, and I would be remiss if I don't bring this up in this episode. I listened to an episode where you were talking about how you had some sort of formula with how many racks you were supposed to have, and then a board member was like, but why? And you're like, oh, I don't know.
I remember that.
Of course, now people things are expensive. People are trying to budget shop. How do you think about the Nordstrom Rack side of your business? And I guess if you want to talk a little about your decision to bring it to downtown Seattle.
Sure. Well, the rack business, we've been in it for a long, long time, but it was really just a natural extension of the exhaust that we have at the full price business. So you don't sell everything. At a certain point, you didn't, even after we marked it down and all, you still have something left. So what happens if you don't have a clearance vehicle that's different from your stores? Because we don't want to make our main stores just a clearance center. We want to keep it more about newness and discovery and less about
that brand,
the cheapest thing after 2 years that we couldn't sell.
Yeah.
So the rack has a natural place there in terms of the exhaust. But it's also true that really what makes the rack work is that every brand also doesn't sell everything they have. And they have to figure out a way to have exhaust if something didn't work or whatever.
Right.
And some of them can do that through their own clearance outlet centers and stuff like that. But a lot of them end up going the TJ Maxx route or Ross, whatever. A lot of the brands that we carry don't want to end up in TJ Maxx or Ross. They aspire to something that feels more elevated than that.
Yeah.
I don't know how else to put it. So our average price point at the rack is, I don't know, 3x of what TJ Maxx is.
Is it really? Okay, because I shop, that's kind of like where I go.
But it's because the brands we have a lot of brands they just don't have that.
Yeah.
And we have access to it. So what we do is we talk to a brand partner, whoever it might be, and say, we know you guys have exhaust at the end of the year. Rather than selling it to TJ Maxx, why don't you sell it to us? Because they don't do anything for your full price business. We do. We're partners with you guys. We have this really successful rack business. We put it out there. It just sells. It works. And that kind of gets back to why wouldn't you have more of them? So it was originally just a vehicle, again, for the exhaust, but that would limit how many of those things you could have because you only have so much exhaust for the Nordstrom banner. Once we knew we could buy into it with closeouts and special makeups from our brand partners, then the supply of what we could carry is huge.
There you go. Yeah.
So then it's like, okay, if TJ Maxx can have 2,500 stores wherever they have, we have 100 racks. Or I mean, how many could we have? Probably couldn't have that many, but could we have 300 now. Could we have 500?
Yeah.
And there was always this thought, well, you can't have more of those than you have at Nordstrom stores because that's going to dilute your brand. Well, first of all, we do much more business in the Nordstrom banner than in the rack banner. We have more stores, but those stores are smaller. They don't do as much business. Does that make sense? I mean, someday might we do more rack business than Nordstrom? It's possible. And when would it be too much? I don't really know. We'll know when we get there, I'm sure, if it's something that's destructive to the brand or the whole business. But for right now, our thing is, why don't we just let the rack organically and naturally meet the demand?
Yeah. When you were saying some of the most successful Nordstrom racks are the ones that are actually close to Nordstrom, so they aren't cannibalizing them.
Pretty much all of them.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so interesting.
I mean, you go to Bellevue or even here, or I think a place like South Coast Plaza in California, and within a couple blocks, we have a rack store that does a lot of business.
Yeah.
So there is some kind of natural synergies there. They don't cannibalize the business. I think that surprises people. Part of the recipe, again, that makes the rack work is we have great brands that you wouldn't typically find in that off-price sector.
Yeah.
So there's, people know a good deal when they see it, and largely because if they're familiar with the brand, it's like, oh, I know that's a good deal.
Exactly.
So we don't have to convince people what it is and why it's worth what we're charging. They know.
Yeah. So, but why?
So that's how it works.
Why downtown Seattle? What metrics were you looking at besides foot traffic? What?
Well, we've always been in downtown Seattle.
Okay. But
we're in Westlake, but we're going to move to the old Forever 21 spot.
Okay. Yeah.
Which is better. It's above ground. It's not, it's visible. It's a little bigger. It's a more efficient use of space. The reason we decided to do that, it was just a pure business decision. We're doing X amount of business in Westlake there. We think we could do Y there. Yeah. These are the rents. These are the trade-offs.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really not much more complicated than that. We know it doesn't matter if we're a block away or half a block away or on this corner or that corner.
Yeah.
That's not really the point. And then, we're from Seattle. I mean, we think we should have a successful rack next to successful stores. The downtown Seattle stores, one of our biggest, more successful stores. It totally makes sense we'd have a rack there. And our Westlake rack is really successful. We think this will be more successful. So It's not much more complicated than that.
Makes sense. Well, that's what we do here on this podcast. We make things simple. And we've got Barnes & Noble just opened downtown. I want to mention
which
that
is
too.
great.
Yeah, which is really cool. So speaking of Seattle, let's kind of close out with talking about the Seattle business community specifically. We are seeing some larger companies leaving Seattle. We hear some rumblings of complaints about the Seattle business community. I want to know what your take is on why it's important for you to stay headquartered here, and I don't know if there's anything you want to change about the Seattle business community.
Boy, that's a good question. Very timely. I mean, there's no doubt that the dynamics of downtown Seattle as a retail hub have changed, and not for the better. There's some really positive things. One of them is tourist business is good. The convention business brings a lot of people. That's good. There's more people that live downtown than used to. That's good. What's not good is the perception of safety, of vibrancy. I mean, all you have to do is take a walk around where we are and see all the vacant storefronts. There's a lot of them. That's not an inviting situation. There is a thing relative to safety that I think is more perception than it is reality, but it doesn't matter. If that's the customer's perception,
is reality, right.
If you live, I don't know, let's pick a place. If you live in Shoreline and you're like, I want to go to Nordstrom. I don't know if I want to go downtown. It's kind of sketchy there. There's theft and I don't know. I don't like being there after dark, and I think I'll go to Bellevue, or I think I'll go to Alderwood. And that's happened. Our Bellevue business is really good. So I think when people have choices, they're going to make them for their own personal reasons. But we want to remove any impediments and barriers we can to downtown. We want it to be a safe place. We want it to be a fun place. We want it to be a vibrant place. We want other things going on around us, because that activity and that success just brings more people to the party. We've had our conversations with the chief of police, the city council, the mayor, new mayor. You know, like, we're a big taxpayer.
Yeah.
Very big taxpayer, big employer in town. We want to stay there. We want to be there. We want to have our corporate people housed there. You know, if you go back to 2019, which you use as a metric there, we do a little less business. We make a lot less money in downtown Seattle. We pay a lot more taxes. So what we've talked about is we don't mind paying taxes and all that, but we want to get something for it.
Yeah.
And so whether that's, again, have to do with safety, the police, the safety, I mean, the optics of safety, a lot of it could just be optics. And everyone understands what that is. I don't care what side of the political spectrum you're on. People like safety and things to be nice and clean also. That's a given. Yeah. So that's not controversial. So that's what we talk about, is how can we make this more inviting for people, all people, a more inclusive place. And the city agrees with that, but there's practical realities they have too. But yeah, I mean, we're running a business and we're trying to do it the best way that we can. We want to be a good community citizen. It matters a lot to us to be a positive force in the Seattle market.
Yeah, I've heard that businesses, you know, we're happy to pay more taxes, but, you know, if we're still getting broken into and we have to pay for the window ourselves, I'm kind of thinking more small businesses, but it totally makes sense. So I appreciate it.
I walked down the street yesterday after I run some errand, and there's a woman with cleaning solution and a brush trying to take the graffiti off their storefront. I mean, you know, it's like, you know, and it's a reality. Those things happen. But I mean, you know, that's an expense.
Oh, yeah.
That's a distraction.
Yeah. I mean, the cameras, the fixing, the cleaning.
Yeah. So it's all that stuff. But we're trying to be constructive parts of the community. We'll work with anybody.
Right, solution oriented. Yeah,
totally. We're all about solutions. We love vision. We want to be a part of it if we can. We like ideas. All good.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, look, we have a good business downtown, or we wouldn't be expanding to that new rack.
Of course.
I mean, so it's not like, oh my God, this is Armageddon. But I mean, as an example, we closed our store in downtown San Francisco a couple of years ago.
Okay.
I mean, if you had told me that 15 years ago we'd do that, I'd say, no way. It's one of our best stores. It was.
Really?
It went from one of our best stores to one of our worst pretty quickly. And because of all the existential stuff around just what's happening in the downtown retail core there, Portland's got their own version of that.
Yep. I mean,
we've got our own version of that.
Every major city.
Yeah, everyone does, but there are differences.
Okay.
I mean, if you know, because we're in Chicago, we're in New York, and those have rebounded
better,
much better in some of the West Coast cities. again, can we find a lot of common ground for everyone to get behind what it would take to make things better and whatever role we can play in that? Sure, we'd love to.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, we like Seattle. We're hopeful about Seattle. We're optimistic about that, but we're also realists and pragmatists we have to be.
Yeah, I think that's really well said. Before my closing question, is there anything else that I didn't ask you that you want to make sure that we get out on this episode and want the listeners to know?
Business is good. We feel like we're operating from a position of strength and momentum, which is great. That creates opportunity. Not playing defense and reacting to everything that's really difficult and hard. There's still those parts of the business, but we have momentum, and we feel like we have a lot of visibility to things that we can work on and invest in that's going to enable the business to grow and be successful.
Yeah, it's so great to hear. I think there's a lot of doom and gloom, and it can be easy to get into this negative spiral and like only seeing stores that are closing. So it's really nice to hear from you that things are going well and that you're here in Seattle. So we're going to close out with a question. I want to shout out Ben London was one of our guests. He's the CEO of Sonic Guild. I loved his interview about the music scene. And we were talking, I think you guys are in a band together,
We are in a band
right?
together. We've been in a band together for 15 years maybe now.
Oh,
a long
my
time.
goodness. Well, yeah, so shout out to him. He kind of helped get this interview together. But I want to close out. I know you're a music fan, obviously, and I want to give you an opportunity to shout out any kind of local band that you're listening to or upcoming show you're going to or anything.
The first thing I think about is the last show I went with Ben.
Okay.
And it was a sub pop band. They're not from Seattle, but sub pop's a Seattle thing. So I'll give them a shout out. So we went and saw Weird Nightmare. Do you know about Weird Nightmare?
I don't know.
Okay. Well, we saw them at Baba Yaga. Have you been there yet in Pioneer Square?
No.
Well, it's a newish music club. I'd not been there before.
Okay.
It was cool. It was great. It was kind of intimate.
Yeah.
It was big enough, so it sounded great. It had stage and everything, but it was small enough that you felt attached to it.
I love the smaller venues, yeah.
So this band, Weird Nightmare, they're on Sub Pop. They got a big record. They're from Canada. And,
Cool.
we went, and it was fun just to see something new, and the energy of what that is, of discovery and stuff, is really energizing and I think inspiring to people that are musicians, too. So there's that. I would say local bands that I think are pretty great, like Deep Sea Diver comes to mind, and that's a great band.
Yep.
And they've been working hard at it for a while.
Yeah.
I'm a fan, and I'm cheering them on, and I think they've had some success with their first record there in Sub Pop, and I'm good friends with Megan Jasper at Sub Pop. That's a person you should get on your podcast, by the way.
Okay, well,
but you got to be prepared for swearing.
I think I can do that.
But she does it in a very charming way, though. But but yeah, no, I think I'm a big supporter of the local music scene. I was on the board of KEXP for years.
Okay.
My brother's on the board now.
Yeah.
I'm a fan of all of that and championing the local scene and all that stuff. It's great.
Well, it's a perfect fit for this podcast. It's definitely something that I'm really passionate about too. So I thank you for giving the shout out. And for those listening, go see a show. Go to Tracker.
Yeah, go see a show.
Go somewhere. Well, Pete, thank you so much for taking the time to sit down with me. And thank you again to STG at Cary Hall. But this has been super, super interesting. And I just appreciate your time.
It's my pleasure. Thanks so much for inviting me.
Thank you. This has been The Weekly, with production assistance from Nick Patry. If you liked what you heard, rate us and write a review on Apple Podcast or Spotify. We love listener feedback, so if you have any story suggestions, comments, or complaints, email us at info@theweeklyseattle.com. Make sure to check back next Sunday for the latest local business news. We'll see you next time.